All right, let's jump right into this explainer and unravel a completely documented, entirely bizarre historical mystery. We're exploring the dancing plague of 1518. I want you to imagine an entire town suddenly swept up in an uncontrollable compulsion, literally dancing themselves to the point of exhaustion and death. It sounds absolutely impossible, right? Like some sort of exaggerated fable or myth. But it happened, and it is 100% real. The historical file for this event from 1518 absolutely proves the old saying that truth is truly stranger than fiction. And I want to make this super clear right out of the gate. This isn't some old medieval legend or a localized fairy tale that just got exaggerated over the centuries. We have hard contemporary records from the era. We're talking physician notes, local sermons, and the actual city council minutes, all confirming exactly what went down in the city of Strasbourg. So, our mystery kicks off pretty quietly in July 1518. A woman named Frau Troffea steps out into the street. There's no music playing, there's no festival happening, no celebration of any kind, and she simply begins to dance. Nobody asked her to do this, there was absolutely zero logical reason for it. She just started fervently moving her body right there in the middle of a dirt street. For 6 straight days, she danced almost without stopping. I mean, just think about the sheer physical exertion of that. She ate almost nothing, slept only briefly, and pushed her body so incredibly hard she was literally bleeding right through her shoes. And when she was briefly still, the historical records note that she appeared completely confused and dazed, like she had zero control over her own actions. And, the contagion spread shockingly fast. On day 1, it's just Frau Troffea dancing all by herself. But then, a second woman begins dancing right beside her. Then a third. It spreads through the streets like wildfire. By the end of July, over 400 people have joined her in the streets of Strasbourg, caught up in the exact same uncontrollable compulsion. It took less than a single month for one confused dancer to morph into a massive, frantic crowd. 15. That number perfectly illustrates the terrifying reality of what was actually happening here. At the height of the plague, up to 15 people were dying every single day. They weren't just dancing until they were tired. They were dancing until their bodies physically broke. People were moving until their ankles literally shattered and their hearts just gave out from the immense strain. It was a fatal exhaustion. So, faced with this escalating crisis of mass death and total exhaustion, the bewildered city authorities were desperately scrambling to find a solution. You have hundreds of citizens dying in the streets, the numbers are growing exponentially, and you have to do something to stop it, right? Naturally, the city council turned to the leading medical and spiritual experts of the day to figure out a cure. The medieval response to this was split into 2 totally different and, honestly, darkly absurd approaches. On one side, the physicians confidently diagnosed the afflicted with hot blood, which was a supposed natural imbalance in the body, and their official, highly scientific medical cure? More dancing. I am completely serious. They actually cleared out the guild halls and the grain market, hired musicians, and paid professional dancers to keep the victims moving, figuring they just needed to sweat it out. Unsurprisingly, making exhausted people dance to professional music while they are literally dying only intensified the plague. Now, on the other side, we have the church's response. They diagnosed a supernatural cause, specifically a curse sent by Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dancers. Their cure was a pilgrimage. They loaded the surviving dancers onto wagons, hauled them to a shrine, put red shoes on their feet, and prayed. Gradually, over days and weeks of the church's intervention, the dancing slowed and finally stopped. By September 1518, the plague had ended, and it never fully returned. But it leaves us with the ultimate unresolved question that still haunts historians and scientists to this day. What actually happened to these people? So, the crucial point here is examining our modern scientific suspects to try and make sense of this wild event. We basically have 3 primary theories. Was it, number 1, a mass psychogenic illness caused by intense psychological pressure? Number 2, ergot poisoning, which is a mind-altering fungus that grows on rye and causes severe convulsions. Or number 3, a collective religious trance state, especially given the really strong tradition of ecstatic religious experiences in medieval Europe. Let's break down the most widely accepted explanation today. The year 1518 was an incredibly dark time for Strasbourg. Famine and disease were rampant, creating this extreme chronic fear. That psychological pressure is step 1. Step 2, an overwhelmed individual's body breaks down under that immense stress. That's Frau Troffea. Step 3, others in the community, primed by that exact same fear and suffering, unconsciously follow suit. Now, you might be wondering, why do experts lean so heavily toward this over the ergot poisoning theory? Well, because while ergot definitely causes involuntary muscle movements, it's something you have to physically consume. It just doesn't spread dynamically from person to person like a contagion, which is exactly what the dancing plague did. And what about that third theory, the religious trance? While religious trances were for sure common back then, they were usually organized, expected, and mostly voluntary. They weren't a fatal, chaotic compulsion, dragging unwilling people from their homes and shattering their bodies in the streets.
Let's really lock in on this concept of mass psychogenic illness, because understanding it is the absolute key to bridging the gap between 16th century superstition and modern psychological science. It's a phenomenon where extreme psychological pressure, when shared by a whole community, causes the body to physically break down, and then those physical symptoms actually spread socially. It's like the mind becomes so overwhelmingly burdened by its environment that it completely short-circuits, manifesting all that stress through involuntary physical actions.
Now, if you're sitting there thinking this was just some weird medieval anomaly driven by a total lack of science, check out this data from our modern era. The human mind, under shared pressure, can still make the body do seemingly impossible things today. In 1962, in Tanzania, over 1,000 factory workers were struck by uncontrollable laughing and literally couldn't stop. In 2011, teenagers in New York State suddenly developed uncontrollable tics. In 2012, factory workers in Sri Lanka collapsed in waves. These are well-documented occurrences of the exact same underlying psychological mechanism happening right here in our modern world. The truly chilling realization here is that the dancing plague wasn't some supernatural curse, and it wasn't just a unique freak event of the 1500s. It was entirely human. The intense pressure of extreme circumstances can spread through a community, and that fundamental fragility of our minds, it has never completely gone away. Somewhere in the gap between the medieval world and our own, this deeply human vulnerability is still hiding right in plain sight. So I want to pass the question off to you. What do you think really caused the dancing plague? Drop a comment below with which of the three theories you believe triggered Frau Troffea to step out into that street in July 1518. Was it the crushing weight of psychological pressure, tainted rye, or a religious trance? Let me know your thoughts, and hey, be sure to subscribe for more explainers that make you question everything you thought you knew about history and the human mind.